Hey, hey, get funky.
I get funky.
I already saw Lisa dancing backstage, so.
Oh yeah. So yeah, welcome to the God Squad, everybody. We're live, and really excited to jump into this episode here. By the way, just so everyone knows, Matthew, our producer, is not available this evening. His daughter is having her 14th birthday party, so
Happy
very
birthday.
happy birthday. Very excited. But that means that I am your producer tonight, and I have never produced our show before. I received some very quick training this afternoon, and so hopefully everything went smoothly. If not, you can blame me, but I'll be blaming Matt because he's not here. Awesome. Yeah, thank you all. Thank you for all praying for me. Yeah, there's Matt. See, he's watching. He's watching from Facebook there. But yeah, welcome everybody. Welcome to the God Squad. Should we do some quick introductions?
Let's do that.
If
All
you
right.
don't know me by now, I'm saying,
Right.
you will never, never know me.
never know me.
What's up, y'all? It's December Rose, your blackest friend. I could be the reason that you're not racist. If you need me to step in and you can say, I'm not a racist, I got a black friend, I'm happy to just fill in that place for you. But welcome to the God Squad right here every week, Wednesday or Thursdays. Well, Wednesdays on John Fugelsang's show. Thursdays right here, everywhere you get your social media live right here with the God Squad. It's December Rose. Y'all know who I am.
That's right.
And I am Dylan Neighbor Cruz, the tattooed theologian, author of Theological Musings, Volumes 1 and the soon-to-come Volume 2 on Election Day. So one of those things is important, and I think my book is the more important of the two.
The most important.
Other people might disagree.
That's right. And I'm Keith Giles. I am the old white dude here. I guess, December, if you're my blackest friend, I'm your whitest friend.
Oh, I am blessed.
Oh, we're gonna throw down over that, Keith. Come on.
Well,
no, he's got to take the title on this because he was lamenting over there not being a Trader Joe's or something where he was at, and that's the whitest thing I ever heard. He was heartbroken, and so he gonna have to have that title. But you could definitely be my next whitest friend. I mean, that runner-up position is you coming in hot. Yeah, you got it.
All right.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
So great. Awesome. Oh, well, we do have a special guest this evening live on our show. We ready to bring her on board?
I do believe we are.
Okay, so here we go.
Hey.
Lisa Sharon Harper.
What's up?
Hold on.
Remember to unmute your mic.
I think you're muted. I might do that. There we go. Oh no, can you do it?
Yeah, I can do it. I'm sorry. You would think I would get this by now, but there you go.
It's okay.
Oh my gosh.
That mute button been holding us back since the pandemic.
Yeah.
That's
we
right.
keep trying to win and we keep losing, but we're gonna have victory one of these days.
So true, so true. Oh my gosh.
Yes, we've all gone through that. You're muted and you're talking.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh wait, oops. Well, welcome, Lisa. We're so glad. Thank you so much for you're our second live guest on this show. Technically third, but the first two were John Fugelsang. So he was on twice.
So excited to be here with you guys and also with your live audience. How fun that they get to kind of like talk back on Facebook. Yes. How fun is that? That's fabulous.
Yeah. So we'll get some comments from the different streams around Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and in the God Squad group, the GodSquadPod.com Facebook group. But people can also jump on live. So if somebody wants to, I'll post the link. I posted it on my feed. I'll post it also in the God Squad group. And then if you have a question or a comment and you want to jump on, you'll click on that link, we'll go backstage, let us know what you want to say in the chat, and we'll bring you on board and let you jump in with us. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm a little jealous of your that whole bookshelf thing you got behind you.
Yeah, she got the setup.
Compared
to I am with a garbage can in my kitchen, and she got a whole library.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, I have to tell you, like, I'm proud of this bookshelf. I am. I'm proud of this bookshelf. It was actually like a design thing and we made it happen. And so I use it every chance I can get.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to level up.
Yeah, I love bookshelves, I gotta say. And then I don't know if you do this, but when I'm watching interviews on like the news or something on television, they interview somebody and they're sitting in front of a bookshelf. I'm not looking at them. I'm looking at the book on the shelf.
So
Oh, I've got that
true.
book. Oh, they've got that one too. What's that?
That's so true. It's a
I
little
look
bit
at bookshelves.
distracting.
If anybody should have a bookshelf behind them, it's you, Keith. Anyway, this man write books
Well,
like, you know what I'm saying, like he changed draws, and I'm assuming he does this daily and on a regular basis. I'm assuming he's very hygienic, because by the way he write his books, you know.
yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. Well, I do have my books. You can't see them, but the top shelf back here behind me are big stacks of my books and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Lisa, we're so glad you're here. Lisa Sharon Harper. You have been a guest on a couple of our Heretic Happy Hour shows, and we've had amazing conversations with you over there. Thank you for jumping into the wild and crazy world of the God Squad live stream show. And
I come in fear and trembling.
yes. Well,
that's probably the best way to approach this crew. I'm telling you right now.
My goodness.
You are safe. You are in good hands.
Okay. I trust you.
Well, so a lot of what we've talked about on some of those episodes, and I don't know, I feel like you're kind of an expert in this topic, at least from the times I've talked to you, when it comes to things like white Christian nationalism, colonizing, Christianity in America and things like that. So we want to hear
decolonizing.
From you.
Let's just be clear.
Yes.
You've already done
decolonizing.
The colonizing has already taken place.
Yes, it took place a while ago. Yes.
We don't need to do any more of that. It's the decolonizing.
Yes.
Of Christianity. So, I mean, maybe talk about that a little bit. Like for people that aren't familiar with that concept, what do you mean when you say decolonizing Christianity?
Well, I think essentially what we're talking about is decentering the power of whiteness. And whiteness, I think the most basic understanding what we mean by whiteness is kind of that space in the center that is transparent, so you can't see it, but it has the authority. It claims the authority to define everything, to control everything, and to name everything. In fact, really what I then argue is that whiteness is really warring for supremacy against God, because only God really has the authority to name and define and control anything. Yeah. And so whiteness, not white people, but the power of whiteness, which was first crafted in the mind and then came out through law. And so philosophy and then law, and then, science tried to get in there and try to justify it. But, it's literally pervasive now, this idea of the supremacy of whiteness. And so whiteness being the power that controls colonized spaces when they're colonized by Europe, any nation in Europe, when they go out and colonize, they're actually trying to establish, one of the first things they did in that era of colonization was to create racial hierarchy wherever they went. And they would always place white at the top of that ladder of hierarchy, and they would always place black at the bottom. And then they would have anywhere from 2 to 3 to 1 to 50 things in between. Like, Brazil has 50 different races that are all in between white and black. But America, it started out literally on our very first census, there was only one race, and that was white. And then, and the other was slave, and then other, right? So white, slave, other on the first census, 1790. Wow. But since then, it's gotten much more complicated. And now we have 50 different possible ethnic groups that you're, or racial groups that you can say you're part of, none of which actually makes sense, because race is a construct. It is the way that we enforce the supremacy of whiteness.
Yeah.
That's right.
So to decolonize is to decenter all that mess.
Yeah. That's so important, because it's all, number one, it's done for political power, right? And as you said, it's a construct, right? I think we were talking before about how the concept of whiteness erases a lot of ethnicity that kind of gets lumped into whiteness, right? So someone celebrate their whiteness, but maybe they're Polish or German or Czechoslovakian,
exactly.
Right? And so that is gone. Like that part of their identity gets erased and just gets replaced with this concept of whiteness, because it's preferable. To be identified as white means you have more privileges in your society, right? So you lean into that and you kind of lose that other part of your identity. But the whole idea is a construct, right? It was just something invented, as you said, to sort of create power structures. So it was also, though, right? It isn't just racial, right? It's also economic, right? Is it favoring sort of the rich over the people that don't have wealth?
Well, yes. I mean, I think when you go back to the creation of race, literally you have to go all the way back to Plato. And Plato is the guy, in Western civilization, the first person to start to delineate what race is. And the way that he thought of it was that race is the different metals that different people groups are made of. It's debatable whether or not he actually thought that was actually like physically true, that people are made of gold or silver or whatever. But he used this illustration in his treatise book on the Republic. And so in that he actually talked about the gold people were created to serve society in this way, and silver people were created to serve society in that way, and so on, copper and iron and all the rest, right? And so now his acolyte, his student, Aristotle, took that and ran with it and actually he was the first person definitively that really created the hierarchy. It's debatable whether or not Plato did, but definitely Aristotle had no bones about it. He actually said, if you have been conquered, you've shown yourself to have been created to be enslaved.
Oh, sort of like it's God's will, right?
It's God's will.
This is the natural order.
That manifests destiny.
Yeah,
exactly. So that's where it comes from. It all comes from this like Greek philosophy, Greek philosophers, Plato, Aristotle, some Sophocles thrown in there, Socrates. So you have, this is our baseline, and then from there you had, Pope Nicholas V in 1452. He did the doctrine of discovery, where he actually then declared indigenous people are non-human. Who was he thinking of? Like, what was he? He was not referencing the Bible when he said that. He was referencing Aristotle, right? So they've been conquered. They've shown themselves to be worthy, or created to be enslaved, created to be removed. And then from there you get science, and then from there you get law. So so and once it's embedded in law, well, then, all bets are off. It's basically your whole society, the way that you move in the world is now ordered around this fake thing, this construct. So even though race is not an actual thing, it actually has real impacts on people groups that have so people of African descent who are called Black on our census have very similar issues because we've had very similar experiences according to the law. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I have a comment too about, here's something that the trajectory of that concept and that construct into law. When you said it's a concept, it's a construct, and then they make it scientific, because if you don't make it scientific, then it's just something that's wickedness, evil. It's
it almost
right.
Sounds
so
racist.
you gotta make it real in order to make it real, right? Otherwise, it's just the wild, fantabulous thoughts of a racist person. So, but we got to put some science. But we got to put eugenics. We got to, got to make it real. So you put the science behind it to make it real. And then once you make it real, then you have and then you translate that into law. Then you have the ability and the parameters to dehumanize, brutalize, and do all these things, and make it acceptable. That's what makes it acceptable.
Palatable.
Yeah,
and then it's palatable then.
Yeah, in December.
Now you have parameters. You have a permission structure for your wickedness.
Yeah, we like that word, permission structure. A lot of people are using that right now, right? And it's true. It does offer a permission structure for that. And December, I mean, it's also the case that sometimes they would do the law, and then they would, go get the scientists to justify the law.
Right.
So think about it like this, like the very first race laws on this land that we call the United States of America. The very first one was 1662 in the colony of Virginia. And it was to solve a perceived problem on the ground that was happening about 52 years after the founding of that very first colony. And that the problem that they were trying to solve for was people of European descent, men of European descent, raping their enslaved African women and having mixed race children that were running around. And they began to get hip to the reality that English common or English law said that citizenship came through the line of the father. And these are white men who are raping and they're from Europe and they're citizens of England. And so, wait a minute, my dad is an English citizen, therefore I am an English citizen, therefore I cannot be enslaved. Right. And so what do? They eventually change where citizenship comes from. Now, no longer will it come through the man, but it now shall come through the woman in perpetuity. They added those two words. So what you basically get is you get the law first, and the law was 1662. But then you have the slew of Enlightenment era scientists that come through. And they're the ones in like the 1700s that begin to start to ideate on this thing called what we call scientific racism now. And that justified then that very first race law. So it kind of goes both ways. It goes back. There's not really a linear thing to it. It's just they're going to do what they're going to do, and they're going to find a way to justify what they're going to do, because it's ultimately about power and control.
Right.
Exactly.
Wasn't there?
There's a great book by Alan Taylor, The History of the U.S. Colonies. I think it's called American Colonies. And he goes through and he does a really good job of explaining the process that you just described and how we got laws that then start to undergird the systemic racism and oppression. And then you have Thomas Jefferson, who, spoiler alert, rapist, many times over, who believed in scientific racism. And now you can fast forward to 2024. And I can't believe I'm saying this because it's 2024.
It's true.
But Jordan Peterson is this well-known psychologist who white people flock to, and he spouts scientific racism. I've heard him do it with some guy named Stephen Molyneux, who is a pseudo-intellectual white supremacist.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And
I thought you were going to say Mr. T.
Well, Donald Trump.
No.
Mr. Trump.
Yeah, he just did it.
Didn't he? Yeah, he just did that on his.
And his
under
whole
the guise of science. Yeah, I'm so fascinated by the science of eugenics.
The genes of the people are.
Yes, he just did that.
Right.
He just said it.
What are they going to do? Bring back phrenology next?
Yes.
I got some bumps on
That's
my
a Felix.
head.
Felix said that.
Come on.
You know.
And that leads into that poisoning of our country stuff, the genes.
Yeah.
That's what they're talking about.
And then you get this pushback against something called critical race theory, which most people can't define, wouldn't know it because it's a law school theory.
Yeah.
But it does speak to everything that Lisa was just talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Because as Derek Bell said, the systems are in place. So even if you make tweaks to the law, the system is still going to be maintained. And in systems theory, a system will perpetuate itself over and over again until there's a shock big enough to change the system. And we have not had our truth and reconciliation in this country yet.
That's right. We never have. I mean, I was just thinking recently about the reality that we had the Civil War, and then we had like 9 years of flourishing for people of African descent in America from 1865 to 1870. Well, some people would say like 71, around 71.
Yeah.
No, 1865 to 1877. And then the 1877 presidential election, there was like this wrangling over who won. And so then there was a compromise. And that compromise pulled the troops out of the South and they said, you take care of your race problem in your way. And that's what ended the flourishing of Black folk during what was now what we call Reconstruction. And it began the era of Jim Crow, where everything just came down heavy on us and was restricted. We had I think the number is like, I'm going to be conservative here. Conservative is 1,000 elected officials that of African descent across the United States in those, what is that, like 11 years during Reconstruction. And then by
Reconstruction era.
Right, Reconstruction era. And then by 1900, there was only one. And that one was a Southern guy who was like basically more racist than anybody else in order to be continue to be elected. He just, he went full bore Clarence Thomas, and that's how he stayed elected, right? So then he was even voted out. So we never had our truth and reconciliation time. We never had our reckoning. In fact, if you take this into international terms, and this was my thought earlier, is that in international spaces that go through the kinds of wrenching, like transformation that we were going through in 1865, the end of the Civil War, we're transitioning. We're literally becoming a new country because we had never had the vote for everybody up to that point. Even then, we didn't get the vote for everybody. Women still couldn't vote. But at least at that point, it was now not by race, right? And so there's a huge transition happening, but we never sat down and said, this is what happened.
Right.
This was wrong. Forgive us.
Yeah.
Right.
We just never did that. We never had our reckoning. So from that point forward, we've had these like lurches forward with major movements like the Civil Rights Movement and Black Lives Matter and the women's suffrage movement and the women's liberation movement. But we have always had what MLK called white lash afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is
that's how we got Donald Trump.
That's right.
I will never forget when his name just left my mind on CNN. Black gentleman with the glasses and the bald head.
Oh yes.
He said, yes, there you go. If I wasn't trying to think of his name, it would have come to me. But yeah, he said that. He said Donald Trump, the election of Donald Trump was a white lash. And I personally had never heard that term until he said it, but I immediately knew what that was. Immediately. I was like, that's exactly what that was. Because how do you go think about the prestigious office of President of the United States and then think about Donald Trump, somebody who never served in public office in his life.
Right.
Coming from the entertainment industry. With never mind all the crimes and things he's done since he's been in office. This man is coming into the office with 5 children by 3 baby mamas.
Yeah. Come on now.
6 bankruptcies. Getting sued here, there, and everywhere. Failed businesses all over the place. All kind of verifiable small businesses that he has left in the lurch, bankrupted because he didn't pay. I mean, 26 or something women saying that he's either sexually harassed them and some. Who else could do that? Not even another white person. Okay.
Right. That's right.
Definitely not a black. Can you imagine a black man with his record ever getting in there in the first place, let alone being elected again, the nominee after all the 2 impeachments?
And after January 6th.
Yes.
After January, first of all, on January 6th, can you imagine if a black president on his way out of office stoked and provoked a black mob to the Capitol? It'd have been a bloody steps. It'd have been blood everywhere. Because I tell you what, they didn't perceive those people to be threats because they were white, and don't get it twisted. But I promise you, if they were black, it'd have been blood everywhere because that would have been a threat. Charging, busting down windows, busting down doors, beating cops with flagpoles, spraying cops with bear spray, blood everywhere. Yeah. Don't get it twisted.
That's right.
And then go from that to didn't even show up to the inauguration because you having a tantrum because your ass got to get out because you got evicted by the American people. Okay. Yeah. And even to this day, you will not own the fact that you lost and you went and got this mini me version of yourself who will also not own the fact that you lost.
Now, let me imagine. Can I just throw this in there too? Because think about this. This actually goes right back to the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
The civil rights movement had 3 major wins, like 3 major achievements. There was the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and the War on Poverty, which really, all 3 of those were like major. I mean, within 9 years, they cut the poverty rate in America in half.
Wow.
For everybody, in half. Yeah. In 9 years through that war on poverty. And of course, then it was bad-mouthed by right-wingers from that point on, and nobody now thinks of it as a major achievement, but it was a major achievement. It's where we got a lot of our major economic safety net programs today, right? And so major wins, but then right after that, you get the rise of the religious right in the late 1970s That's the white lash. The white lash. And it actually came sooner than that, but the full-on white lash was the rise of the religious right.
And if you remember, before Trump was the Tea Party. That was a white lash.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm getting there. We almost there. So like you have the rise of the religious right in the 80s. And that is the seed, December, right? That's the seed of what we now understand as white Christian nationalism.
Yep.
And white Christian nationalism is what showed up on the doorstep of the Congress on January 6th.
Yeah.
And in between that, you had the Tea Party, which showed they were the first, like, forget it. All bets are off. I'm taking my hood off. We're going to spit on Black legislators as they walk into Congress.
Yes.
We're going to
I forgot that happened.
Remember that? Do you remember when the very first time it's ever happened in American history, in the middle of Obama's very first
State of the Union,
when guy yelled out, "You lie."
Yeah, yes. Liar. Said liar.
You lie. You lie. Yeah. And liar. And
that has been disrespectful ever since. The quorum is just gone.
Never before. Exactly. And so what was that was white lash. All of it was white lash. And that is the promise that MLK told us it was going to happen in his very last book. Chaos. The book is Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community?
Yeah. Wow. There was a question from Bill Finstermaker, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but it says, do we see supremacy concepts seeping into faith groupings? And Bill, that's where the New Apostolic Reformation and the Dominionist theology comes in. People like Doug Wilson, the people of Bethel, Reading, etc. And there was I don't know if you saw it, Lisa, but there was a really excellent article in Mother Jones for this month about Lancaster County, where I'm at. I'm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania.
Are you? We're not that far from each other. I'm in Philly.
Right. Mm-hmm. And the Christian this place has become a hub for Christian nationalism. So it's a really interesting dynamic. We have the Anabaptist plain groups here, the Brethren, the Mennonites, and the various Amish sects and all that. But now we also have white Christian nationalist groups, the Patriot News. Two of our judges are Christian nationalists. I've been in their courtrooms. It's horrifying. They adjudicate cases with LGBTQ plus youth, and they're Christian nationalists, so you know what they believe about those kids, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And Josh Parsons, our one of our conservative county commissioners, his whole personality seems to be, if something is good for the upliftment of all people, we're going to push back on it. So Lancaster City is a sanctuary city. And as soon as that happened, Lancaster County commissioners, led by Josh Parsons, said, we are not a sanctuary county. Yeah. So we do see it coming in. And these are Christian people. I'm going to put the air quotes around there because they don't look like Jesus to me. They're not reading the same book. So, and I'm also a public theologian, Lisa. So I was excited to see that there was another public theologian going to be on the panel tonight.
I can tell. It's exciting to hear you talk. Thank you.
So where do you, as a public theologian, and in your work, you work both nationally and internationally, where do you see this concept of white supremacist normativity showing up in the faith spaces?
Well, I got to say, I mean, it's not new. It's actually not. And it's not just now showing up. There have been a few different studies, several in the last couple of years. One that just recently came out in book, actually a couple that came out in book form. They're coming out from sociologists and also pollsters that are showing definitively that the majority of white Christians in America, whether they're Catholic or Protestant, whether they're mainline or evangelical or fundamentalists, the majority, as in more than 50%, are sympathizers with or adherents to white Christian nationalism, the tenets of white Christian nationalism. The most stringent of which is that Jesus is white, right? So Jesus has to be white. Right. I got news, people. Just go to the region.
There are
region.
There are no white people. The Bible wasn't written by white people.
No,
to white
not
people.
one. Not even one. And
Yeah.
and they're always like, but Jews were white. No, it was written by Jewish people before they went all up into Europe.
That's
Before
right.
that, you know. So before that, think they're literally on the edge of Africa. Like they're literally right. And actually, I was struck when the very first time I ever went to the region, to the West Bank. I was sitting there and I was talking with like a circle of Arabic Christian theologians. And I asked them, so what is your relationship with Africa? And they literally looked at me with blank stares. They were like, what? And I said, well, I just repeated myself. What is your relationship with Africa and like people in Africa? They said, we are Africa.
That
part. I was like, whoa, that's like blew my mind because we don't get that story. We don't get that framing. We get Middle East, right? But that's even Middle East is a European framing of the region. It's how they carved up the region. But where did Jesus run? Where did Mary and Joseph take Jesus when they were escaping Herod?
Egypt.
Africa.
Yep.
They didn't go up into Italy, which they could have done. They didn't go to Asia. They went to Africa to blend in.
Girl, somebody gonna be mad about you saying
some of the major theologians in the early several hundred years of the Christian church. North Africa.
That's right.
Augustine of Hippo.
Come on now. Come on now.
Kate Papp had a question that I want to address. She says she's Spokane Valley. Hey, girl, I actually grew up an hour and a half away from Spokane. I was raised in a one-horse town called Moses Lake, Washington, about an hour and a half outside of Spokane. So my roots are not far from you. But she says there's a huge white Christian nationalist heiress, and you ain't lying, especially Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah, I lived in Boise, Idaho for a while, and I can attest to that. It was the whitest place I had ever lived.
They were having KKK parades
Yeah.
Around the time that I was raised there. Most far right area I have ever lived, creepy, and they do not see it. It is one of the whitest cities in the United States. It is so ingrained on the North Idaho border. I know not one person who is not voting for Trump here. How do I interact with people like this? I want us to address that because there's a lot of people in Cat situation where they are surrounded, and even in their own family, with people who are voting for Trump. And it's not, here's the thing that we got to understand. I know we want to equate, and sometimes you can. I know we want to equate a Trump voter with racism, but it's my understanding that that's not always the case. And I know that's sticky ground, but it's my understanding that's not always the case. For whatever reason, they have chosen to vote for him. Some of the reason is racism. For other people, it's principles and policies. For me, I can't vote for him for all of those reasons that they are voting for because of the racism and the principles and the policies. But I would say this: if you are from a Christian perspective, not from a colonized Christian perspective, but from a life after Christ perspective, not looking at Christians because Christians is wilding out right now. not looking at churches because churches is wilding out right now. I'm talking about looking at the life of Christ, the example of Christ, the light of Christ, and to approach them with love, which is hard to do. Love is hard work. True, unadulterated, unfiltered, and untampered with Christianity is hard work. Because because it's a life pattern after Christ, and a life pattern after Christ says I gotta love the people that hate me, and that's hard work. A life pattern after Christ says I have to be kind to people who are mean to me. That's hard work. I'm gonna tell you right now. I don't always cross those I's and dot those T's, girl, because I'm gonna cuss a motherfucker out, and and pray for them too. You know what I'm saying? Because I could do that because I'm grown. And I love God, but I cuss a little bit, and it is what it is. But you know what I'm saying? You have to approach them like Christ would. There was a thing a long time ago, and y'all know it when you hear, what would Jesus do? And they had the t-shirts, and they had the little wristbands. They had everything. What would Jesus do? WWJD. It's a cliche, but you got to ask yourself that, especially in these times. And here's my thing. If you can't approach somebody with love, don't approach them at all. This is what I'm learning. Protect your peace, boo, in this season. Protect your peace. You don't have to go back and forth. You don't have to go back and forth. You don't have to debate anybody about why they are or are not voting for Trump. You ain't got to go back and forth with somebody about whether or not Trump is or isn't a racist. Because if their eyes are open, they can see it. If their ears are open, they can hear it. And if they're not seeing it or hear it, they don't want to see or hear it. You ain't got to go back and forth with somebody about policies and whether or not banning abortion is actually literally killing women. The numbers are there. The statistics are there. The bodies are there. You protect your peace. That's my advice to you. Protect your peace. If you cannot have a meaningful, respectful discussion, don't talk to them. If you can't interact to them with peace and love, remove yourself from the situation. In this season, you got to protect your peace at all costs. And if that means not dealing with somebody, don't deal with them. Because what you gotta be. I'd say I gotta stay in our community. There's two things I gotta do. I gotta be black and I gotta die. Can't get around it. I woke up black and I've been dying since the day I was born. And in this life, you got to pay taxes or you're going to find yourself hemmed up. But I'm going to tell you what you ain't got to do. You ain't got to go back and forth with nobody. Protect your peace. That's how you deal with that. Let people hate. Haters gonna hate. Let racists be racist because a racist is gonna be a racist. Let people be ignorant because ignorant people who want to be ignorant will continue to be ignorant. Let people be misinformed and uninformed because people want to believe what they want to believe. And if you slap them upside the head with the truth, they still can't hear you because if the truth don't validate the lie, they ain't bothered with the truth, honey.
Yeah.
Protect your peace.
Can I also just add? I'm sorry, let me just real quickly, if I could just add the kind of the flips, the other side of that same coin, which is, I mean, I always find it really useful to engage with someone as if they have an open heart, an open mind, and they want to understand, and they also want to listen, and they want to have a real conversation where I'm listening to them, and all, they want to be heard. And I engage with them until it becomes clear that they don't actually really want a conversation.
Yeah.
They want a battle and they want to win. If they're only out for a battle to win, I literally will turn my back and walk away because I don't need that in my life. Period.
That's
right.
You could block on social media and you could block in real life. For real. You could really block somebody.
Block. My favorite is restrict.
Yes.
Unfollow, unfriend,
block, keep going, and nobody can see them or hear them, and they don't know that, and they'll never know that.
I would say,
go ahead. Sorry,
from a middle-aged white guy perspective, right? And I have a picture of myself with my mom and my baby sister, and taken in like 1976 in Kansas City, Missouri, where I was born, with a giant Confederate flag on the wall.
Wow.
And I guarantee you it was not it's heritage, not hate kind of thing, because as I said, we were in Kansas City, one of the most racially segregated cities in America at the time. So that's my starting point.
Yeah.
Like 4 years old, right? Well, I don't know squat diddly not about anything. And now I'm 52. And I've got to let my light shine. And as my New Testament professor said, this journey towards anti-racism is not something most white people are ever going to finish. But I feel like it's incumbent upon me as a white public theologian to do everything I can in my limited capacity to dismantle those structures of whiteness. My white skin is an accident of birth. It does not make me special in any way. My blue eyes do not make me special in any way. They make it harder for me to be out in the sun, actually, because more light gets in. And I didn't know that, but I digress. But I have to, through my writing and through my public speaking, and I get exactly what you're saying, December, you got to keep your peace, because, I have PTSD, so it don't take me long to get ratcheted up.
Yeah.
And like Lisa was saying, once you figure out they're not communicating in good faith, then you can say, okay, we're done here. But I still think that white people caused this mess. And so white people have to do the heavy lifting to fix this mess.
Yes.
Yes. And that's kind of the perspective that I'm bringing to it. And I appreciate that we have now so much information at our fingertips. And I could just turn on the TV today and go to YouTube and put in Lisa Sharon Harper, and I can come up with all kinds of videos where I can watch and become educated and informed.
Yeah.
And that's such a wonderful thing. Or I can go and get a history book, because that's where my undergraduate training is from. so I can learn from Eric Foner about the radical Reconstruction era, and then when the fertilizer hit the ventilator because of Andrew Johnson, and things went south.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And not in a good way for people of color in this country. So, and that's why they don't want history and philosophy and religion taught in schools.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. They don't want history, but they want, for some reason, they think having someone teach the Bible is going to be helpful. And I guess what I've seen though is like no conversations about who's going to teach it and how. And they're just leaving it wide open because you're going to get a really mixed bag, my friend. There are many flavors of Christian, and there's not even that I know of any mandates in these laws about putting the Bible back in school and having Bible classes. Like, is the football coach teaching it? Is the track coach teaching it? Like, who's doing this? Who's teaching the Bible to your kids? And so, like, it could actually do more damage than you think, right? It's like it's not even going to be helpful in the long run. And speaking of Bibles, we were just talking about this the other night. This thing going on in Oklahoma where they're trying to get the Bibles in school, which, first of all, that's their first mistake. They shouldn't be. They shouldn't. The state of Oklahoma should not be purchasing Bibles from anybody for any reason to put them in public schools, but they are. And of course, now they're using these very narrow parameters. That pretty much the only Bible that qualifies is the Trump Bible, right? So I didn't even know this until we were getting ready for the show.
Just disgusting.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
But we were getting ready for John Fugelsang's show last night, and we were going to talk about this. And I was reading an article about it, and it blew my mind because this is the first anyone had ever told me that I'd ever seen this. That Trump's Bible, right? So it's the King James, and it includes
terrible translation,
the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the amendments and the Pledge of Allegiance and the lyrics to Lee Greenwood's song. God bless the Queen. Of course, that's really important for children. We need to make sure they know the lyrics to that song. But when it lists the amendments, okay, so on its face, it looks like, wow, what an American document. And we can talk about how this is idolatry and this is a horrible idea and this is leading us deeper into Christian nationalism and all that. But it only lists the first 11 amendments. It leaves out the amendments for women can vote and Black people can vote. It leaves out the insurrection clause where someone who has led an insurrection against this country is not allowed to hold office. It leaves out all these amendments. And my mouth fell open. I was like, man, they're going to be that blatantly racist and misogynistic.
And our caller said, remember the caller, he said that from John's show yesterday, they're telling us in black and white, when they say make America great again, exactly where they mean. Because they took out the 12th Amendment through how many?
27.
13, 14, 15 through the 19th.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, all the way
They're
to 27.
telling you exactly where America was great. Before that, before Black people could vote, before women could vote, look, this is when we thought America was great. All them amendments just effed everything up.
It's funny because I've actually been thinking, and recently I actually said to someone, well, it wasn't even recent. I mean, I've been saying it's actually for a while. A few times I've said what they're trying to do is they're trying to take us back to slavery. And that feels so weird to say, like, I mean, really? Are you really like
Christian Reconstruction is absolutely
you think they're trying to put people in shackles but yes, they really are.
Yes.
I mean, they have fantasies about that because what is the fantasy? The fantasy is control.
Yeah.
It is absolute control. Yes. And there is the lie that they have eaten for lunch and breakfast and dinner, and they have said, this tastes good. Let's get some more. The lie is that the only way to be safe, to be well, is to be fully in control and also to be all powerful. So, I mean, that's why I really do believe this is a movement. This white Christian nationalist movement is a movement that is not really at war with me or with women or with immigrants, or it's at war with God. Yeah. It is a war against God.
Yes.
To be God.
To be
and
God.
That's why it must be defeated. It must be defeated. But the only way to defeat this particular enemy is not, I mean, look, who knows? God, please don't let us have another civil war.
Please no.
But, please, no, God, please. But the only other way for us to actually win against this enemy is through the heart. It is by making connections, by connecting with our neighbors, by sharing our stories. I mean, the reality is that's what we were created for in the first place. We were created for radical connection with each other.
I love that.
And
radical connection.
It's at the center of sin is disconnection.
Yes.
That's what sin does. Sin disconnects us. And so what do we do if we want to fix this? We have to reach. And I have to say, even though I'm a little nervous about this political strategy that Kamala Harris has employed of trying to get Republicans to come on board with her. And I think a lot of Democrats are very nervous about that because we've seen the compromises before. And those usually it's not just a compromise, it's we, people of color and women are the ones who are compromised in those equations. We are compromised in those equations. But that said, the act of reaching radically across the aisle in order to listen is something that has not happened in this country for decades. Decades. And it is a healing thing. It is healing something in our American soul to look at the Republican or look at a Democrat and not see Republican or Democrat, but see human being who has desires and wants and a heart, a beating heart. Liz Cheney is somebody who I have never agreed with on anything.
No.
I mean, she's not even just a conservative. She is a MAGA conservative. She was pro-Trump when Trump first came into office.
Until the insurrection, not the resurrection.
Until the insurrection. That's exactly right. She was pro-Trump until the insurrection. And so, and her father was the person who got us into the Iraq War.
Exactly.
I mean, he's the one that is he was absolute and warmonger. The mastermind of a war that was tricked. We were tricked into going into that war. Yeah. And it was all for money. So I have never, ever thought of them as somebody I would ever sit down and have coffee with but I have to say, listening to her recently and watching how she has been calling on her people to reach across the aisle and to vote across the aisle, I have been convicted. I've been convicted because I allowed my mind to dehumanize her. I did not think of her as one who could be converted or transformed or who could see, had the capacity to see what I see, or even want to see what I see. But I'm beginning to have a little more faith that is possible. Let's just put it this way. I am trusting that that's a future that is possible.
Yes, that's really beautiful. We have a caller backstage, Sal, who's a longtime listener. Sal, I'm going to bring you on, and hopefully you want to participate in this conversation.
Oh, fun.
So, Sal, welcome to the show.
In the words of The Rock, finally, I have come on the God Squad.
Oh, you're live. You're live, my friend.
Oh,
welcome.
Thank you. This is actually the first time getting in here. I generally am either riding home from work or whatever and not able to listen. Boy, I tell you, I am enjoying this conversation. But with Pastor December, I'm sorry, I have to tell you, Brian would not approve of your cussing today.
I know.
Okay. I mean, can I say it? Do you mind if I say it?
You can say it.
I don't want to say he's on that bullshit.
He's on that bullshit, Sal.
All right.
He's on that bullshit, Sal.
He's on
it
that
is what it is. He on that bullshit.
And I don't know if you guys listened in, but he had one other caller after your segment that tried to do the same thing to him. And John just had a fun time with both of those callers.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I'm listening in on the conversation, and there are some things that literally just terrify me about the Christian right, or the so-called Christians, and their agenda. I had a former student, a young man in his very early 20s, basically putting out something on Facebook he put a couple of pictures up there, and it was all in regards to hurricane relief. And he put a picture of Muslims up there and said millions of dollars. He put a picture of Zelensky up there and said millions of dollars.
Right.
He put a picture of one other thing up there and said millions of dollars. Then he put a picture of the Florida, North Carolina, and so forth, and said $750.
Right.
And he captioned it
propaganda.
Well, yes, and he captioned it by saying, "Is this what God intended?" And my first thought was, well, first of all, stop spreading not misinformation, disinformation, because I think you're smart enough to know what you're talking about here, that you're spreading lies, number one. But number two, man, go back and read your Bible, seriously. I'm not an expert on the Bible, and I was raised Catholic. I consider myself a recovering Catholic, and have considered myself one for many, many years. But I still like to think that, I've got some sort of relationship with Jesus, or I try to live the way he would have lived his life. And I think as a high school educator, you got to have a lot of that in you to be able to deal with kids today. And I'm not being sarcastic or putting them down when I say that, but there's a lot of qualities. There's a lot of qualities that you have to have as an educator, especially with high school kids. I think that are very much asking yourself, what would Jesus do?
What do you teach, Sal?
I teach a college prep class, which is the acronym is AVID, which stands for Advancement via Individual Determination.
Wow.
And then I teach a class called Real History, which is U.S. history and pop culture through film.
Nice. Oh, I love that. Love that.
Well, awesome. And then I think Dylan, I think this one will get you good. I teach rock and roll history.
Oh, yeah.
Outstanding. Yeah.
I teach rock and roll history
classes covered that.
Were you an American Studies major in college?
No, I was actually a journalism major in college.
Oh, wow.
I've been involved in the music business for many years. I started out doing college radio back in the day. And then I went into journalism, started writing for music magazines. I was also a publicist for 2 small heavy metal labels, and then continued writing after, and then sort of tailed off when I went into education. But I mean, I also host my own radio show these days.
Well, hey, there you go.
Come on.
So
how can people listen to your show, Sal?
I've listened to it. It's good.
It's on a low power FM station, so we get people from around the world to listen. I can't really honestly tell you how big my listenership is, but I mean, I'm sitting here right now with a pile of CDs here
I love that.
to listen to, another pile of CDs here.
Wow.
And if I took the I mean, I can really quick, if you could see that. I mean, that's part of my CD collection back there.
Oh, see, I've got a spinner rack back here. And then boxes in the garage. Boxes and boxes in the garage.
My album collection
That's the
is
nostalgia
on top of the bookshelves there.
We'll have to compare collections one of these days, Sal.
Hey, I'll tell you what. I wasn't going to do this tonight because I didn't want to interfere, but I would love if I could, maybe on a week-by-week basis, call in and just give you and your listeners like 5 tracks that I could expose you to go listen to. That I mean, and I don't want to take time by promoting.
And post them in the comments. You could always post them in the
Facebook group.
Yeah, post them in the comments.
I will, but I will. There is one song I will tell you that I think I would love to see John use this as one of his bumper songs, and it's by a gentleman named Brent Amaker, BrentAmaker, and the song is called "Dump Trump."
Okay.
And you got to picture this guy in this real baritone voice, singing
Okay.
Don't Trump. It's really cool.
We'll have to check it out. We'll have to check it out. Well, listen, Sal, we got another listener backstage. I want to thank you for popping up on the God Squad faithfully, because we get to see you and I get to interact with you during the week sometimes.
Yep.
He'll tag me and be like, they on that bullshit. The thing I was like, they on that bullshit.
They are. That was the first thing I thought of, and I tried to get on John's show last night, but I thought, you know what? If she posted, hard about it. And then when Dylan put that up, I thought, I absolutely have to post that on there. That he's on that, but Brian's on that bullshit.
Then Brian's on that bullshit. Well, thank you, Sal. We got to get some t-shirts made.
I would love if he became this motherfucker on one of these shows.
One of these days.
Brian needs to be this motherfucker.
You know what? We're going to make him, and those like him, we're going to make the selective Christian. That's what I call him. I call him a selective Christian. We're gonna make that in general.
Theology with the edge, Lisa.
This is next level right here. Next level.
I should warn you. Well, thanks.
We don't have this on Freedom Road. It's like almost there, but not quite.
Yeah. I'll leave my songs. I'll leave my songs in the chat for you guys, and then you can check them out. And if you don't mind, I'll leave the link to find my show on there as well.
Please do.
If y'all anybody listening to music and loves music, I'd love to have more listeners.
Absolutely.
God bless, Sal.
Thank you, guys. Bless you guys. Have a good one.
God bless.
Have a good one. Thanks, Sal.
All right. So we have one more guest. This is a recurring guest, returning guest.
Hey.
Yeah, nobody's special.
It's Tabby.
Yeah. Nobody special, just me. Yes, in December I am not where I usually am, so there's no decaf
vortex coming out the ceiling.
Yeah.
Well, December. Did you already hear? I lost part of my roof, so now I actually have a real hole.
Oh Lord, I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
You have to admit, it would have been priceless though if it would have ended up there. That would have been perfect,
in the same place. You had the fake hole. Yeah.
Exactly. It wasn't. I got hit with wood. That's how I woke up that morning. Was a tree fell on the roof, and some of the roof hit the ceiling, which is an old-fashioned wood panel. It hit me in the head. That was a interesting
morning.
Wow. I'm glad you're okay.
Yeah.
Very much so, and it's. Thank God for insurance. I mean, it took them a while, but and we got that deductible. It's pain in the butt, but we're okay. Now, it's lovely to see you, Miss Harper, or Ms.
Nice to meet you, Tabby.
And I appreciate that you're doing work talking about colonization, and that's. I think I mentioned in the thing. People highlight Elon Musk a lot, and they'll even sometimes will point out that he's South African.
Not knowing what that means.
Not understanding that to grow up in South Africa in the time period he did, he was superior. He was taught that he was superior.
And his parents made a lot of money.
It was not that. Yeah.
Exactly. So he has never had a time period where he hasn't.
That's right.
Understood and thought of the authority.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you look at, this is actually, Tabby, I'm glad you've raised this, because when we think about, actually, did anybody here see the movie Origins or read the book Cast?
Well, I wanted to watch it. I haven't.
You gotta watch that movie. You must watch that movie. It's so good. Oh my gosh. Okay, I watched it on a flight, right? Like a flight from like West Coast to the East Coast, and I wept. I wept. I'm right next to my person, who was next to me, who I didn't know. I felt so bad, but I was like, I can't help it. But it was so good, because what Isabel Wilkerson does in her book Cast is she draws the connections between these different spaces where there is a caste system put in place. So I'll leave that. But in my own travels, I actually had that same experience of going to these different places and finding that the same kind of caste system is put. I didn't call it caste. I called it race, like racial hierarchy. Those same systems are everywhere, and they are everywhere that European colonizers went because they had the same MO. They were working from the same sheet. They were working from the same, set of to-do list once they claimed land. And also they claimed land from the same laws, the same doctrine of discovery, right? That's what gave them the right to do this all over the world. So so now getting to my point, when you look at South Africa and how they had their townships came into development, they actually declared apartheid in the 1960s, late 1950s, early 1960s. They declared apartheid. Before that, they had it, but they hadn't made it solid. Right. But then that was the 1960s. Where were they looking to in order to get the idea for their townships? Our ghettos, our segregation, and our Native American reservations.
Yeah.
So our Native American reservations is what inspired the townships, and also our Jim Crow segregation system inspired their system of having to carry a pass in order to prove that you're allowed to be on the road. And then when you look at Israel and Palestine, same thing. They were inspired. Right. Yeah. They were inspired by South African apartheid and American Jim Crow and indigenous reservations. So they always trace it back to us. Same thing in Australia. They were inspired by us, our systems, which we have never fully repented of.
That's exactly
Nazi
and
Germany.
Correct about
Nazi Germany. Yes.
And not repenting of it. I'm with you there, because that's one of the reasons why we get so much conflict about mixed race folks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, somebody that is of two ethnicities is not any different. But in South Africa, I love Trevor Noah wrote a book called Born a Crime.
Oh yeah, great book.
Yeah.
Because he has he's of mixed race heritage. I mean, mixed ethnicity. I hate using the word race because, like I commented on the one thing, literally there's one human race. Mm-hmm. What we base race off of now is ethnicity. It's not. Yes, it's your country of origin of your ancestors. It has nothing to. Whether you believe in creation or evolution, we have the same ancestry. So
I mean, Tabby,
to create divisions.
Yes, and I mean, when you also we were kind of on that cusp of I'm going into this space, and I want to take us there. Is that when you look at Israel and also Germany and the concentration camps, and the reality that America has never actually repented for any of that, and inspired movements that have been crushing the image of God all over the world. The real question that we have to ask ourselves is, what is it going to take then? What will it take for the church, especially in America, to repent of the ways that we have been party to creating this world, to voting for the people who would want to create this world? I think, Tabby, you mentioned this, that there are people who want to take us back to, did you say that? Take us back. We talked about slavery earlier, but you said something in your thing. I'm getting all confused.
It's okay. I don't quite recall. I know I mentioned about apartheid, because there we go. We had, just like with the Jim Crow things, we had legal commentation on how we could interact. It wasn't.
I know what it was. I got my thought again. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So go back to 1662. Remember that thing we were talking about earlier, the very first race law?
Yes.
That first race law was because of mixed race children, right? Who were all of a sudden coming up in many, many numbers in Virginia because of the rapes. And now they're starting to say, well, I should be free. Well, same thing happened just a few years later in Maryland. They had 600 mixed race children that were born to white women in Maryland. and Delaware just in the colonial period alone. And that's what catalyzed the first race laws in Maryland. And then that's 1662, 1664, when it was when those first race laws passed. 1967, you have Loving versus Virginia, which is the first like legal major. It's like the nail in the coffin, because it literally reverses those very first race laws that made it outlawed to marry across race. That was Loving versus Virginia. And just this week, there was a senator or some legislator, I can't remember where, but definitely in the South, who said we need to reverse Loving versus Virginia. That's the next step. That's the next step. You saw that, Dylan?
Oh yeah. And
now that might be the only reversal Clarence Thomas ain't gonna be down for. He down for all the rest of them. He don't care what happened to all the rest of us Negroes, honey. But that one he ain't gonna go for that one.
But
I can't go for that. He ain't go for that one.
Here's also
we
what's
haven't
so
had
ironic.
the Truth and Reconciliation thing here, and that's why you have Confederate monuments. But if you go to Germany, you are not going to see any monuments to
not even one.
No,
it's illegal.
Confederate monuments in Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Why do we have Confederate monuments in freaking Wisconsin? Because white people want to celebrate white supremacy all the way. I see more Confederate flags in northern Pennsylvania than I saw when I was growing up in Texas.
It's
crazy. Bizarre to me.
Yeah. It's also very ironic to me that both Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are parents of mixed race children. It's so crazy to me that these guys are the ones attacking people of mixed race. These are the people attacking refugees and immigrants. Like, it just makes no sense. None of it makes any sense to me.
But them ones got the good genes,
That's right. Like Byron Donalds, he's one of the good ones.
I mean, I wonder how much of it has to do with the reality that Donald Trump is an absolute clinical narcissist, right? And so he can't see anything but himself. So when he looks at immigrants, he's actually seeing himself, and he's describing himself as he's looking at them.
Yes, of course.
And he's describing himself as he's looking at Black people, and he's describing himself, when you went through that list of, he's done all these things. These are all things that he says other people are, but actually,
especially Black people,
he is those things. Yes, he is all of those things. And so, I mean, I wonder if the issue is really an issue of not just narcissism, because narcissism is fundamentally about deep self-hatred.
That's right.
It's about profound self-hatred.
Projecting it outward. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so, I mean, I wonder if there's just a deep need and level for people who, not just Donald Trump, but for those who would follow him into that, to really begin to heal from that deep self-hatred.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, this is so good. Well, I want to be careful of our time here too, because we're a little bit over our hour time period here. Lisa, I don't want to take too much more of your time.
No.
Yeah, Tabby, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tabby.
Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Hope your house gets
good to see you.
Reconstructed quickly.
All right. Yes. Thanks.
We'll see you next time. Awesome. Well, this has been so great, Lisa. What an amazing conversation. The hour just flew by. But very educational, very helpful. And I hope it helps all of us to think more about this topic. You gave us a couple of really great resources to look into, that movie Origin, which I'm going to go and check out.
Must watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have your book, Fortune. You can tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah,
so
about that.
Fortune actually took 30 years of family research. And I did not start that research thinking I would write a book, but in the middle of it realized this actually is not just my family story. This is the story of race in America. And because my family story began on this land, and this is when I say began, I'm not counting the indigenous story, because that is much more murky and cloudy. But from the people who came here, the first people who came here in our family that we know of came in 1682. Just 20 years after the very first race laws. And they were in relationships that were directly impacted by those first race laws. So that's how I learned that history, especially Maryland's history, which I had no idea about, that it was white women marrying enslaved Black men. Actually created that second race law in Maryland. And so that book travels through 11 generations of our family story, and then ultimately moves into 3 essays that break down what will it take in order for us to repair what this construct called race broke in the world. And I make the case for truth telling and reparation and forgiveness for those things that can never be repaired. So I hope that you'll read it, and I hope that you'll share it with others.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it sounds fantastic. And we don't make this go away by ignoring it or pretending it doesn't exist, like the white supremacist and those who are wanting to remain in that whiteness construct don't want us to dismantle it. So it sounds like a really incredible and important book, and I hope our listeners will all come pick up a copy for sure. I am definitely going to right after the show.
Yeah.
And if you want to learn more, go to Lisa Sharon Harper.com, where you can find out about her books, her work, what she's doing, her show, Freedom Road Podcast. Tune in, stay up on your girl, you know what I'm saying? So go to LisaSharonHarper.com and check her out. We got to wrap up this show. It's getting late, but it was something on my heart to do because we have to be careful as Christians. If we say we love Christ, I'm one of those folks who I shed the label of Christian because I could no longer identify with what I was seeing Christians doing. But I consider myself a believer and follower of Christ, even though some people want to disqualify me for cussing. Was it Brian? Brian probably don't think I'm a Christian because I cuss. That's because he on that bullshit. But anyways, in my former life, I want to show y'all a slide. In my former life, I was a pastor. I pastored for 10 years. And here's the thing. I pastored a church in rural South Carolina, a little town called West Union that's just outside of Clemson, Seneca, West. It's like 3 little cities right there: Westminster, Seneca, West Union. This church is predominantly white to this day. Predominantly white. I didn't get voted out. There wasn't no drama. I got tired. I said, Lord, send me a replacement like Elijah and Elisha. And he sent me somebody. And I was like, I'm out. I'm done with church. I was just over it.
Wow.
But I met some wonderful people there. This is a former life. I want you to look at this congregation. Me and my family made up the majority of the Black people in this congregation. And I want you to look at this picture here. This is my assistant pastor. This is Brother Bob Weidendorf. I love this man dearly. That's his beautiful wife, Martha. He passed away from COVID in I think 2021 or 20. We lost about 3 or 4 members out of our church.
Wow.
I eulogize this man. This is, you see what he's wearing. You see he's retired Marine. He served the country faithfully, served the church faithfully. He was there when I got there, and he was there after I left. As far when I say he was there to open up the doors, he was there to close the doors. He kept his gun on him. We had some stuff happen in the church over a period of time where we were being threatened and things was going on, and he showed up with an AK. This is the first time I see the AK in real life. He almost went to jail for me. This man he loved me and loved my family. That's my daughter there that he's hugging there in that bottom left corner. I want to tell you something. 99% of the people in this church are Trump voters.
Wow.
99% were Republicans. I'm going to tell you why I'm saying this. And this beautiful man and his family, they have my back. I trust him with my life. Okay. This young man right here, James Green, this young man, you see the flag behind him. Okay. I'm sure a Trump voter, Republican. Okay. Yeah. Typical, whatever the case. I trust this young man with my kids. Now, the reason why I'm showing you these pictures is because I want to make sure that the scriptures say, in all thy getting, get understanding. Anybody here know your word? In all thy getting, get understanding. And this is why I'm showing this, and I'm going to try to wrap it up as quick as I can. I want to make sure we don't do to them what they do to us.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about them as in the people I'm showing these pictures. These people have shown me nothing but love. I'm talking about the racist, hating, xenophobic, homophobic. I'm talking about they dehumanize us. They demonize us. And I'm not talking about just Black people. I'm talking about anybody that's not on their side or that's not on Trump's side. I want to make sure that as people who claim to follow Christ, because we are talking about decolonizing Christianity. And I think part of decolonizing Christianity is not to become the colonizer yourself in the way that you act and move and handle people who have also been mishandled by colonization and don't understand the impact that it has had even in their own lives. They don't understand what white privilege is, and they'll say, like this young man, he's like, I grew up poor. I don't know. They don't necessarily understand the systems. I want to be careful that we don't lump everybody that votes for Trump into a box and label them like we have been labeled. Don't become the oppressor. Don't become the colonizer. Don't become racist yourself. And I know there's many, that's many layers to that. Don't become prejudiced. Don't become a hater yourself. Don't become the wickedness that has been wicked to you, trying to prove that it is wicked. Be very careful. And I'm putting that up there because I want people to approach everyone. Sharon said something earlier. She said, approach everyone with that respect, with the belief and hope that they want to understand, that they want to engage with integrity, that they're coming from a righteous place. I want to humanize, okay? I'm not trying to justify or rationalize racism or nothing like that. But everyone that I showed you, and 99% of that congregation is Trump voters and Republicans. And when I tell you they love my black ass, okay, they love my black ass, okay? There was nothing I'm the pastor, the senior pastor of this church. They voted for me to be, there was a vote that was held. And they voted for me to be the pastor of this church. And they cried when I left. Do you understand? Because they didn't vote me out. I got tired. I got weary. I got sick of the institution of church. There was stuff going on in my personal life. I was going through a divorce. And I said, I got to bow out. They cried when I left. These people love me. And there's no doubt in my mind that they love me. Yeah. Racism is a complicated thing. Okay. And so I want to make sure that we be careful to handle this with the care that it deserves and not to lump everybody into a bucket. This man, they had another one of the couples in my church had a Confederate flag outside their house. Wanted us to come for dinner every doggone Sunday. One of my kids over there wanted to feed me half to death. These people trying to feed me every which way. You see how big I am in these pictures? They were trying to feed me going and coming. Every which way. Understand? Nothing but love. So I want us to be careful. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. But I want us to be careful that we look through the lens and eyes of God when we look at these people. No matter how they voted, look through the lens and eyes of God. Not through our pain, not through our past, not even through our present. Try your very best. Yeah. Okay? To look through the lens and eyes of God when you look at these people and not dehumanize them for how they're voting or what you think their policies and platforms are. Yep. Keep Beautiful. Christ at the forefront. That's all I'm going to say about that. Okay? Yeah. Thank you. No, that's very good. Thank you. That's beautiful. And I feel the same way, December. I have family members and friends that vote for Trump, and I love them. I don't think they're horrible people. I think they've been, confused and deceived and a lot of other things, but I love them. And I don't ever want to fall into this us and them mentality. Yeah. Don't get better. Try not to get bitter. Yeah, that's right. So, we're all human beings. Like we've said in this, there's only one race, the human race. And so we don't want to fall back into dividing one another. At least I love what you said about sin is ultimately about division and separation. And so if we don't want to fall into that ourselves, we have to resist that. We have to do everything we can to look for what we have in common. I think when we look for the things we have in common, it opens up a conversation, and it eventually leads us to dialogue and hopefully friendship and ultimately to peace. When we only focus on the things the ways we're different, that leads to arguments and conflict and violence and division. And I don't want to walk down that path. I think we need to do all we can to walk down the path of peace. Yeah, in a world of Donald Trump's, be a Daryl Davis. Yes, exactly. And for people who don't know who Daryl Davis is, he is the African-American gentleman who goes and he talks to KKK members and gets them to hang up their robes and renounce. Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah. I want to get him on the show one of these days. I've been trying to get him on here to Happy Hour, but if I could get him one of these days, that would be so great. Yeah, and that's easier said than done. I don't know that I've got it. I don't know that I have it
in me sometimes. But
yeah, and we don't all, we have to pick our lane. Yeah, we have to figure out what we're called for and what we're made for, and we can only do what we can do. Some of us are made like Daryl to do that kind of work, but not everybody can do that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, we can do what we can do. Anyway, well, Lisa, thank you
this
so
has
much.
Been fantastic. Thank you so much
Lisa.
for joining us.
We are very,
thank you.
And the well of wisdom that you are. We got to have you back. I'm sure we didn't get it all. We got to get some more out of you.
That's right. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Okay, shout out to Care Bear, Judy Springsteen, Beth. Just thank y'all for listening. Sal, thank you for joining on. Gaza, what's up, homie? Everybody that's tuning in, I just want to shout you out. Thank you for tuning in every week. Becky Payne, thank you. Kat, thank you for your question earlier today concerning how to talk to folks. We love y'all. We appreciate your faithfulness. What's up, Lisa Stratton Stevens? Thank you for tuning in. Join. I want you to share our podcast, you guys. Invite somebody to listen. Bring somebody along next time.
Yeah,
see you next week.
Yeah, see you, everybody.
Donna Leah, Judy Springsteen. Love y'all.